Hello students. In this video lecture, I am going to discuss about two topics of operating system. One is user interfaces and the other topic will be system calls. First of all, what is an user interface? The user interface is the interface through which the users can interact with the operating system. So whenever the user have to make use of the operating system to access the computer hardware, he will be he should be able to submit his request to the operating system. For example, if I want to take a printout, then I should know how to submit my request to the operating system to take the printouts with the help of the printer. On different operating systems provide different kind of interfaces depending upon their the objective of for what purpose the operating system has been implemented. It could be a simple interface if it is meant for lightweight, if it is meant for purposes where there is limitations of memory or limitations of processing, or the the application is of more intense application, so there is no need of providing any rich graphical interface. So in such case it will be implemented with a simple interface, or it could be a complex interface if the application if the usage demands a lot of graphical elements in it, then it will become complex interface and also heavier. So it is what kind of interface is provided is depending upon the usage of the operating system. They are broadly classified into two types: command interpreters or command line interpreters and GUIs. So some of the operating systems have opted for command line interpreters, and most of the operating systems today, they are all following the GUI based interface. First we will explore the command line interface. After that we will move on to the GUI. Basically, command line interfaces are designed for taking text commands. So the user has to memorize all the commands for various purposes to be used for the operating system, and then he can submit the commands depending upon his requirements. For example, to create a file there is a command, to delete a file there is a command, to open a file there is a command. So and also to create directories, to move from one directory to another. For each and every purpose there are different commands which are all some textual words, and the user has to properly remember and recall the commands. This is the idea of a command line interpreter. And when it comes to Unix based operating systems, it's called as a shell. A shell is nothing but a command line interface under the Unix flavor operating system. And there are different ways of implementing the CLI, that is command line interface. Option 1 is certain operating systems include the command line interface as part of the kernel. So the kernel itself is holding the command line interface also. We will shortly see what do we mean by a kernel, but as of now the first approach is including the CLI into the kernel itself. So whenever the kernel is running, it's running with the interface also. Option 1. Option 2 is just running the command line interface as a separate program or as a special program, not mixing it with the kernel. So the kernel is only going to have the other modules of the OS, not the command the interpreter. See, the command interpreter is running as a separate program. This is option 2, which is being followed in Windows and Unix. The third approach is actually providing a number of command line interpreter options to the users and let the user to select his favorite one. So in this case, you can even have some third-party implementations added into the operating system. So people can look into the various options they have, and they can choose the one that is they like based on their experience. So this is shells. So this is an interface, the command line interface of DOS operating system. So DOS was the one of the earliest and oldest operating system implemented by the Microsoft, and this is how the interface appears. Here you have to type the commands. For example, currently it is displaying dir. So dir is a command for directory. It is to display all the directories and files in a particular directory or the current directory. Similarly, there are plenty of other commands for various purposes. Now coming back to the shell, shell uh, is a customized command line interface provided to the users. These are some of the examples of such shells which are all available under the Unix operating system or Linux operating system, and people can choose whichever they prefer. In terms of functionality, there is not much difference between the shells. It is only that the choice of the appearance, for example, the font sizes and the designs, that makes the difference among the shells. And this is an example of a shell called the Bourne shell, which is available in the Linux Solaris operating system. The main function of the command interpreter is taking commands. So the user is supposed to feed his commands to the interpreter, which will then be executed by the command line interpreter. And when it comes to execution of the commands, there are also variations available. There are two ways by which the commands can actually be implemented by the command line interpreter. The first option is the command interpreter will have the code for all the commands. So it will have the code for the various commands. So whenever a new request comes from the user mentioning a command, then the command interpreter will locate the coding for that command within itself, and then will transfer the control to that particular function and execute it. So this is one way where command interpreter is implemented to hold the code for the command implementation also. Another approach is implementing the commands as separate programs, system programs. So for each and every command there will be a separate file, and that file will have the coding for that function. This is actually similar to our library functions implementation in the C programming language. So we have stdio.h, which has a collection of functions. So whenever you refer a particular function in your program, then there is a module compiler which maps your function call with the actual function definition, and then it gets executed. This works in a similar way. So there are separate system programs implementing each and every command, and whenever a command is submitted, the job of the command interpreter is simply to identify a file which is referred by the command. Then it will load that particular file and will execute, and that that execution will fulfill the request made by the user. This is an example, like somebody says remove file.txt. So rm will have a file name, a separate file is named with rm, and that file gets searched and then loaded, and it is executed with the parameter of file.txt. The advantage of this approach is that it's easier to add new commands into the command line interpreter. So you don't have to rewrite the command line interpreter. You just have to add one more file into the collection of command files. So the command line interpreter will start to locate that file, and then you will execute it. But if you follow the first approach, then whenever the new command needs to be added, you have to rewrite the CLI itself. So this particular approach is commonly preferred. Now, next interface is graphical user interface. So graphical user interface is in fact the most popular and widely used interface. It has the rich collection of icons, images, colors, and audio. It has a multimedia support. So it's generally preferred by people. This is the second approach. And one more very important aspect of GUI is the usage of mouse. So the mouse is supported in GUI. So users no longer need to use the keyboard for typing all the commands. They can just double click or click something, and then it will be executed by the by the operating system. So it simplifies the usage of a computer. And there is another extension of this GUI which is available in the mobile phones, where touch screens are available. So mouse is useful as long as you are using a computer or laptop, but when you want to use a mobile phone, it's inconvenient to carry a mouse along with it. So people have thought about it and have implemented the touch screen interface. And we have earlier seen that among the operating systems, Windows is at the forefront of GUI interface, and Unix is traditionally associated with the command line interface. But nowadays, even Unix systems are having the Windows environment or the GUI environment, because people are preferring that interface. So these are two popular implementations of GUI for Unix systems: CDE or Common Desktop Environment, and the X Window systems. So these two are GUI implementations meant for the Unix system. So you have got the Ubuntu, for example, operating system, which has a GUI. So for that, these two have been implemented. Now coming to the final part of the interface. So given that there are two choices of interfaces, which one is preferred? The preference of the operating system depends upon the user. So if the user is a professional user, like a system administrator, he will prefer a lightweight, simple command line interface, because for him remembering the commands is not a big deal. He would be running the same commands for his lifetime, so he won't bother about remembering the and recalling the commands. On the other hand, command line interfaces are lightweight, so they load easy quickly, and also they are, I mean, far more simpler from the point of view of a system administrator. But on the other hand, the ordinary users or the novice users who use a computer for their day-to-day activity, they prefer to use the GUI because of its obvious characteristics, like the colorful interfaces. So people are opting for GUI. Now we are moving on to our next topic to be covered in this session, which is system calls. So what are system calls? System calls provide an system. We have already explored the meaning of system call in the previous session. So system calls are the ways by which user applications can invoke the OS modules. So the OS has got a huge collection of modules which are all useful for the user applications. So whenever such files are needed or such modules are needed by the user programs, they can just make a call to the OS modules, and then the OS will take the request from the user program, evaluate whether the request is valid, then it will bind that particular request to the actual module, then it will get executed, and the result of that execution will be forwarded back to the user program. So this is the process of system calls. Every time there is a particular system call is made by the user program or user application, the OS will receive the request and will check whether it can be accepted. If so, it will connect it to the actual system call function or implementation, and that will be executed, and the final result will be handed over to the user program. And most of these implementations are used to be in C++, but some of the functions are also implemented in assembly language. Now we are going to look at one example to understand the role of system calls in our day-to-day usage of a computer or operating system. The example is simple one. You want to copy the content of one file into another file. Okay, so you need to open two files. One will be acting as the source file, another will be acting as a destination file, and you have to move all the content of file 1 into file 2. So this is the example. Let us see how many system calls are incurred in the given example. So the first requirement is you need to know the names of the two files, and input file and output file. One general approach is getting the names from the user. So you need a user input. So user input means the user has to be contacted. For that you have to display a message on the screen like enter the file names, and also you have to get the user input from the keyboard, and then you will finally get the file names. All that demands a system call. So to display a message on the monitor, you need a OS system call. To get the input from the keyboard, you need again a system call. So all this will be involving the system calls, and it can even be treated like in a mouse based GUI. That will also be inherently involving the system calls. So it doesn't make any difference whether you are using a GUI or command line interpreter. Eventually every privileged instruction request will have to go through the system calls. Next requirement in the example is we now know the names of the two files. So what is needed next is we have to create the output file. So we assume that the input file is already existing, but we have to create an output file. For that also a system call is needed, because we want to create a file in the hard disk. So the OS is the one that is supposed to access the hard disk for creating the file. So it will need a system call, and in case if we encounter any errors, those errors will also be taken care by the OS in the form of system calls. Okay, now we have finished that process. We have created the file, output file, and we have opened the input file. Now we have to run a loop so that you can move all the content of the first file into the second file. This also happens through system calls, because you are copying from hard disk one memory region to another memory region, which is related to hardware access, and OS is only OS is having that privilege of accessing. And finally, and you may have to return some okay, this action may provide some status information like end of file has reached, or some hardware failure has encountered, or the write operation may encounter various errors. So there are some software errors. So for all these cases the OS will be notified and it will run the necessary system call. And after that you have returned the second, I mean the copied the first file into the second, then you may want to show a message to the user that the file copy is completed. Again a system call, and you will terminate the program. That is also a system call. So what you can understand from this very simple example is that every program execution will make use of plenty of system calls at the background. We are not aware of that. We think that only the program gets executed on its own, but it is not the case. Programs, for example, if you write an assignment statement, then it is not going to need any system call. So, or if you write a if condition, that is also going to be executed by the CPU without leading to any system call. But whenever the instructions are likely to access some hardware like the secondary memory or the input output devices, in all the cases system calls are needed, because OS is the only authority for accessing any hardware. So it will be contacting the operating system, but the user program will be making a request to the OS, and the OS will fulfill the request, and that is what we are referring as system calls. As we are discussing system calls, it is inevitable that I have to mention about the kernel, because kernel is the one that it's taking care of the system calls. So what is a kernel? A kernel is not actually different from a operating system. In fact, what we call as a kernel is the high privileged or most crucial or core aspects of the operating system. So an operating system is a larger application, and it also grows. So it keeps evolving, like when you add a new device, it gets a new device driver, or it gets updated by the operating system manufacturer. So the operating system is much larger, and it is also keep on extended during its usage. So you do, but not all the modules of the OS are crucial, and they are not always needed in the memory. So there are certain modules which are essential modules which needs to be available at any point of time, and there are many other modules which are only needed when a situation arises. For example, you have something called exception handling module that is only needed when an exception occurs. Until then, that module is never going to be required. So the designer of the operating system identifies the modules which are core modules and additional modules. They then segment the core modules of the OS in the name of kernel, and then all other modules are added as non-kernel modules. So whenever the computer is booted, it started, the operating system gets loaded into the memory. But actually what happens is only the kernel is loaded into the memory, not the entire OS. So it's like selectively loading the portion of the OS which is called as a kernel, and the remaining modules will remain in the disk until a situation occurs that some of the disk module has to be loaded, and then it will be loaded at that particular point of time. This saves a lot of memory. So you have a limited amount of main memory, and loading the whole memory every time will not only waste memory, it will also be time consuming. So there is a time needed for loading the OS into memory. So that is the idea of a kernel. So we will use kernel and OS interchangeably. So kernel is nothing but the core modules of the OS. And now coming to system calls, so whenever the system call is invoked by the user application, it gets into something called as a kernel mode. So there are two modes in which a system or operating system runs. One is user mode and the other one is kernel mode. The meaning of user mode is that whenever currently a user application runs, it is called as a user mode. For example, I'm running my PPT, I'm running a video, I'm running my C program. So in all the cases, they are all running under the user mode, where the privilege is very restricted. So I can only do certain things or access certain commands, invoke certain commands under the user mode. If the program attempts to try anything else or high privilege which is not available for the user application, then it all will be treated as a trap. A trap is a privilege violation. So the user application has got certain privilege to execute some of the commands. If by mistake or by intention, if the user program attempts to invoke a high privileged command, then it will be treated as a trap, and the current application will be killed immediately. You would have experienced this kind of situation when you are, for example, if you are running a program where there is a uh, infinite loop. By mistake, you have written a loop which does not terminate. So you will see that after executing for some time, the program will be terminated. That is because it will get into the mode of increasing the memory. So it will keep taking the memory more and also occupying the CPU. Or one more example is recursive calls. So when you make a recursive call without any end, then it will lead to a stack overflow exception. So I mean, there is a limited amount of stack available for the program, and when you make a recursive call which is never ending, you will exceed that stack limit, so it will be treated as a violation and the or trap. So in such case, the option to the left to the operating system is to kill that particular program or the process. So a kernel mode is the one where the OS is running, and the user mode is the one where the user applications are running. So whenever the system calls are made, the call is made at the user level, but the execution of the call or fulfilling the call is happening at the kernel level. So the system calls are initiated at the user program, at the user mode, and seeing this request, the OS takes charge of the system. It turns the system from user mode to kernel mode, and then it connects that system call to the appropriate program or the module, and then it gets executed under the kernel mode, and the results are returned to the user program. And again there is a mode switch from kernel mode to user mode. It's very important that you understand this details and also remember them, because you will have to recall these points later when we discuss some other topics. Now in this picture we are also going to introduce APIs. So we are still discussing system calls. Under system calls we had seen what is a system call. Now then we saw what is a kernel mode or kernel. Now we are looking at API. So APIs are nothing but the programs, application program interfaces, which are library functions provided by the operating system. So whenever you are implementing a user program, you are implementing a program using a programming language, you may have to invoke a system call. In that case, what you will do is that you will typically call a library function, which is in other words called a API, and at the lower level this API will be mapped to a actual system call. The simplest example you can take for understanding this is the we will see that printf. Printf is a example for that. So what happens whenever you invoke a printf is that printf is a library function or a API function. So the printf will be acknowledged by the operating system, and it will connect it to a system call called write function. So write function is the one that actually writes on the monitor, not printf. Printf is only making a request for that system call. So the OS will be connecting or binding this printf with write. That's what API. So API is collection of library functions which are all going to be connected to various system calls. libc is another example for this is available under the Unix and Linux systems. So this is also collection of various functions. For example, there is a create process which is a API function, and there is nt create process which is a system call. So whenever the user wants to create a process, he will only make a call to create process, not the actual system call which is nt create process. At the level of the operating system, the create process will be making a call to the or invoking the nt create process, which will create the new process, and the ID of the new process will be sent to the as a return value to the create process function. This is the example of printf as I told you. So here you are making a call to the printf to print greetings, and the moment this call is recognized, immediately you can see that there is a mode switch from user mode to kernel mode, and then the printf is connected with the write system call, and it gets completed. The arguments of the printf, which is greetings, is forwarded to the write, and that gets displayed on the monitor, and control switch from kernel mode to user mode, and then the next instruction in the program will be executed. One more point to be known here is that the difference between printf and write is that printf works at the data types. You can send the values of any data type to printf, integer, character, float, strings, whatever data type that is needed. The printf supports for taking all types of arguments, but write only works with the byte level. so it does not recognize the data types, it only takes bytes. So the printf takes the does the task of taking the input arguments in different data types and then converting all of them into bytes and sending it to the write function. Now the question that you should be getting now is that why don't we allow the programmer to directly invoke the system calls? For example, in this case, instead of printf, the user may directly call the system call write. But why are we indirectly accomplishing this? Actually, there are reasons for that. First reason is that portability. So if you replace printf by the write system call, it will work in a particular operating system but not in some other operating system, because system calls are specific to OS or they are dependent on OS. So in one OS it will be implemented as write, another OS it may be implemented as some other name. The system call may be different. So if you write a program with the actual system call, it will not be it cannot be ported. You can't run it on a different OS. But printf is it is only at the program level. So the binding is happening at the last stage, that is OS is doing the binding while the program is being compiled or executed. So this provides portability, which is an advantage. And second reason is that you can hide the complexity of the system calls. As we have seen just one example, printf takes conveniently any data type, but write will take only byte level. So you have to implement the write function. If you want to directly call the write function for various data types, then you have to take care of the conversion of all the values into bytes, which is a complexity exposed to the programmer. And implementation of the API I mean eliminates that difficulty. So how is it done is that whenever there is a system call made by the user program, let's say a printf or the create process, there is a number forwarded with that particular system call. So that is referred as system call ID, and the OS maintains a table of system calls with the specific index values. So based on the values applied by the function, it's it is identifying the system call associated with that, and then it invokes that particular system call with the help of the parameters received from the API function. And all these background process are hidden from the programmer. So for the programmer, he writes a printf and he gets to see the output on the monitor. This is also just showing another example, like you are making a call to open. Okay, another similar related topic is passing parameters to the OS. So yes, in cases where the user program wants to convey some value to the operating system, what are the options? The simplest option is doing so with the help of registers. So there are registers available in the CPU, and the values can be simply written in the registers, which can be accessed and fetched by the operating system. But it works only when there are lesser number of parameters to be passed. Another option is writing the parameters into a memory region. So there is a common memory region identified, and there the parameters will be written, and the OS will be able to get the parameters. The third approach is stack, usage of stack, and this is what is commonly used by application because it's more memory efficient. See, in the case of previous implementation, like using some memory region, even after the usage is over, that memory will still be occupied by the values, and it has to be explicitly released by the operating system. But when you go for a stack, you know how the stack operates. So every time you move from one level to another level, there is a pop operation which will remove the previous the older value. So this I mean for most of the implementations of this parameter passing, This is how done. For example, even if you write a small C program where there are function calls with the parameters, what will happen internally is that whenever the function call is invoked, the parameters pertaining to that function call, they will be pushed into the stack, and then control transfers from calling function to called function, and then the parameters will be popped from that particular stack, and that will be utilized by the function. So stack usage is very common for parameter passing. Now the next related topic is the types of system calls. So we have seen all about system calls, the role of system calls, the importance of it. Now we are looking at types. Types are simply category classification. So classification based on what purpose they are used for. So we are classifying the system calls into these types: process control, file manipulation, information maintenance, communication, and protection. So we have got these types of examples of system calls under process control, file management, device management, information maintenance, communications. And these are actual examples of system calls in the Windows and Unix Unix operating systems. So we will look at the demonstration of this particular function in the next session. So how we can implement a C program which makes a call to the fork system call to create a child process. So we will look into that with a detailed demonstration. Now the topic which we are looking at is system programs. This also we have already come across. System programs are nothing but programs which are working at the hardware level. So any program that deals with the computer hardware, manipulates the computer hardware, they are all classified as system programs. And programs that are running at the higher level, that is only interacting with the users. So they take a request from users and they fulfill the request, and it is the user programs or application programs which invoke the system calls. So these are uh, programs which are running at the hardware level, at the lowest level. One prominent example of such a system program is obviously operating system, compilers, device drivers. They are all examples for system programs. And even the database application, database systems, they are also examples for system programs. The system programs are also classified into various types, again based on the purpose. So we have a list of system programs for file management. We have the system programs, various system programs for status information, file modification, programming language support, uh, program loading and execution, communications. Now the other type of programs uh, which are not system programs is the application programs. So application programs are typically for the users. They take the requirements of various users and fulfill them. For example, uh, there is a VLC player, there is a game, there are gaming softwares, MS Office. So those are browsers. They are all applications which are catering to the needs of the users, and they are called as application programs. So with this topic, I am concluding this session video lecture. In this video lecture, I covered two topics. One is the options we have for the user interfaces, command line interpreter, and GUI, and their characteristics, and which one is preferred by which type of users. And the next topic was far more important: system calls. So what are system calls, how they are managed by the operating system, and how they are invoked by the user program, and then what is a kernel, and what is the role of a kernel and what are the two modes of a operating system, which are namely user mode and kernel mode, and how switching happens from one mode to another. Then we had looked at the system programs and their types. Thank you.